Hey there, I'm Bernie Miklasz. Greetings to you, and this is the Bernie Show presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Uh, Let me just kind of give you a little indication of what's coming your way. Are y'all ready for me to raise some hell? What? Yep. All right. Yep. You want me to raise some hell? Okay, let's do it. But first, a gentle reminder that here on STL Sports Central, I do one video per day and one column per day, Monday through Friday, and appear on the Randy Carricker Show every Friday at about 10:30 a.m. And you can always catch it online because all the videos we do at STL Sports Central, they're obviously saved, and you can go to the YouTube channel and fetch anyone you want. You can also hear me frequently talking baseball on KMOX as part of the Gas House Gang and the Redbird Rush Hour shows. So make sure to stop by STL Sports Central for all the great content. We are happy and delighted to pump out for all of y'all on the local teams. I don't know why I am suddenly saying y'all. What is this, Mississippi? Maybe. Maybe the way I'm talking, it seems to be. But anyway, today's topic, once again, Michael McGreevy has, blessed his heart, exposed the arrogance and the incompetence of Cardinals President of Baseball Operations John Mozeliak. Watching McGreevy pitch a gem at Coors Field on Monday night was a real pleasure, considering this awful meltdown of this team's starting rotation. McGreevy went 7 innings, and the Cardinals needed those innings because their starters have been getting bombed out early in so many starts. McGreevy held the Rockies to 2 runs in 7 innings after Andre Palante, Sonny Gray, and Miles Mikolas were assaulted for 18 earned runs in 12 innings over the weekend at Arizona. And you know what? Even if there's one person out there saying this, be quiet. I don't care if the Rockies stink. Since May the 30th, the Cardinals have the worst starting pitching ERA in the majors, and this team is in desperate need of some quality in the rotation. And oh, by the way, the Rockies have a horrible, horrible record, but they've actually played okay the last 30, 35 games or so. But I don't care about that. The Cardinals needed a good start. I don't care if it came against the 1962 Mets. Look it up, kids, or the 1927 Yankees. Why am I getting so mad? I said I was going to holler and raise hell. Anyway, way too much caffeine today, apparently. And I had oral surgery here yesterday, and although everything's fine, maybe it's a little, kind of carryover effect from getting all numbed up and everything. I don't know. My brain's been numb for years. So anyway, McGreevy, we said that, all right, I'll settle down a little bit. Said McGreevy came through because the Cardinals really, really needed that kind of start. And he provided that and much, much more. Every time he pitches, even the couple of bad starts that he's had, bad as in, ERA, right? McGreevy, once again, poised, mature, impressive. He is just a terrific competitor. You're going to have to work for everything against him. Does he strike out people? Not all that many, but we can either accept the fact that he pitched very well, or we can nitpick him to death if you'd rather prefer that. I know this, he didn't walk anyone at Coors Field. So I don't, how many dumb pitchers do you see? Well, in general, but especially at Coors Field, go in there and start walking hitters. McGreevy is mature beyond his years. He's a lot smarter than that. So anyway, McGreevy gave up 2 runs on 3 hits in the 3rd inning, and then he didn't freak out. Went back to work. He shut the Rockies down the rest of the way. Other than the 3rd inning, McGreevy allowed no runs and only 4 hits. All were singles, and set the foundation, no question about it, for a much-needed 6-2 win by the Redbirds. Coors Field is a baseball house of horrors for pitchers, which makes McGreevy's start even more admirable. Before Monday, in other words, through the weekend, before Monday, MLB pitchers had an overall 5.15 ERA at Coors Field this season, and it was even worse for starting pitchers who had been rocked for a 5.45 ERA at the place where historically pitching careers have suffered extensive damage. McGreevy didn't care about the past, and actually his past at Coors Field was pretty good. He actually started a game there last season and did a fine job. You're going to give up some runs at Coors Field, but in his 2 career starts there in Denver, he's got a 3.75 ERA in 11 innings, and the Cardinals won both of his games. What's wrong with that? The answer would be nothing is wrong with that. It's good. Another stat I'd like to give you I love this one. All right, and this is why I look up all this stuff, even though I'm crazy because I spend so much time looking up stuff like this. Because there might be 5 people who really appreciate that it's a great stat, right? I do it for you 5 people. No, I think there's more than that, but whatever. Before McGreevy went into Coors last night and pitched, only 5 visiting team starters all season had pitched at least 7 innings and allowed 2 or fewer runs on the Rockies' home field. That's what McGreevy did last night. Again, 7 innings, at least 7 innings and 2 or fewer runs allowed. The pitchers, let me see, make sure I got this straight here. Yeah, only 5 other pitchers had done this before McGreevy last night. All right. But that short list of starters included names like Chris Sale, Max Fried, American League All-Star Joe Ryan, and Cincinnati's good lefty Nick Lodolo. So McGreevy should be proud to go in there and stand with that group, metaphorically speaking, in pitching one of the best handful of games by a visiting starter that we have seen, or the Rockies have seen, at Coors Field this season. So McGreevy should be part to be in that group. I think that's really a tip of the cap to him. And the Cardinals certainly are proud of McGreevy. Gosh, the players rave about him. Ollie Marmol and pitching coach Dusty Blake love him. All of the qualities that he has. Now, if only John Mozeliak had shown McGreevy more respect in 2024, but especially 2025. If Mozeliak, who is in charge of the baseball operation, had shown McGreevy more respect this year, the Cardinals might actually be able to go snatch a wild card. And I'll explain here as I go along. But most of my focus will be on 2025 for an obvious reason. The Cardinals starting rotation has gone up in flames. That's why. They need starting pitching. And they have a good one, except the guy that runs the team kept him chained to a fence, a ballpark fence, down in Memphis. For the entire season, St. Louis ranks 25th among the 30 teams in starting pitching ERA. Not good. Since the 1st of June and before McGreevy's start last night, the Cardinals had a 5.85 starting pitching ERA, was the worst in the majors, and it's still the worst in the majors, even though McGreevy pitched very, very well last night. So once again, we ask, with the Cardinals rotation falling apart quickly and awfully since late May, why was McGreevy making starts for the Memphis Redbirds instead of the St. Louis Cardinals? Now, some of you who, might be inclined to be like franchise apologists or sycophants or whatever, listen, I praise the Cardinals when they deserve it. I praise Mo when he is warranted it. I try to be fair, but when I'm mad about something and I think something's been handled poorly, I'm going to say that too. But it doesn't mean I'll never say something nice about someone. So I've heard, believe me, I've heard, get the violin out. Well, Bernie, they had to keep McGreevy down in Memphis because they didn't have much down there behind him. And so if the Cardinals, got some injuries on the major league club in the rotation, there's really no depth. There's just no depth. They couldn't afford to bring McGreevy up here because there wasn't much behind him down in Memphis. Since when is the president of baseball operations putting the priority on pardon my French here, the Memphis damn Redbirds? John Mozeliak's responsibility is the St. Louis Cardinals. Why is he worrying about Memphis's rotation? I told you I was going to raise some hell. He could have been making starts for a lot of this season, but nope. Mo had to make sure that Memphis rotation had enough depth. They're okay, just to make sure they had okay down there. What we saw last night was one of the best starts of the season by a Cardinal when we factor in two important things: Coors Field and the fact that the St. Louis rotation was, I don't know, I'm reaching for some awful, stupid, bad metaphor. Okay, the St. Louis rotation was on the side of the road like some broken down car on fire with all the burning oil and the smoke shooting up, right? Awful rotation. And so that's why last night, as much as I really enjoyed watching McGreevy work, it left me even more infuriated by Mozeliak's egregious and utterly clueless decision to keep McGreevy chained to the Memphis fence outside the ballpark or wherever he is, or blocking him at the bus terminal or whatever, instead of getting him up here to St. Louis to help the big league rotation. Imagine that. Instead, Mozeliak stubbornly stood with his decision to stay with Mikolas and Eric Fedde, no matter what, no matter how bad they are, no matter how poorly they pitched, no matter how many games the team loses when they pitch. And these guys were they have been absolutely detrimental, to the Cardinals' attempt to win games. Oh, they've had some good stretches here and there. I'm not saying they're bad every single time, but when they have started, especially Fedde, the odds of the Cardinals winning that game is pretty low. And I'm going to have some stuff on that here when I return for my second and final segment of today's Bernie Show. And I will also ask a question in the second and final segment. How can this be considered a, quote, runway season when McGreevy was never given a runway opportunity in the majors, despite the continual presence of two horrendous starting pitchers? How is it a runway season? Let's just say, I think I'm going to be calling BS on this runway season marketing campaign that really, if you look at it more closely, really doesn't pass the smell test. And yeah, I got some stuff on that as well. But first, something a little more pleasant. I'd like to tell you about DraftKings and their daily Pick Six fantasy game. We're deeper into the baseball summer, and the baseball summer, even if the team's average, above average, whatever, I always like listening to the game while drinking a cold glass of lemonade or maybe a frosty cold one, as the great Mike Shannon would refer to it. And let's add one more thing to this pleasant summer mix. Not just watching baseball, but if you like some action, get involved by getting into the Pick Six app from DraftKings and their daily fantasy game called Pick Six. And we'll explain how do you do it. All you got to do is first you download that excellent app, and then you pick more or less on the stat line for two or more of your favorite players, and you're in the game, and you got the shot at winning cash prizes. I'll give you one that I'm looking for in Tuesday's game at Coors Field. Cardinals center fielder Victor Scott has a line of 0.5 hits for this game, which means he's either going to get one hit, and if you say, all right, if you choose higher, and you put your money down accordingly, if he gets one hit, you're a winner. If the Rockies hold him hitless, well, then you would lose. But I like Scott's chances of getting one hit tonight. And I have reasons to explain this. He bats left. He is starting to heat up, and he's done very well against four-seam fastballs this season. Rockies righty starting pitcher Bradley Blackhawk has gotten hammered by left-handed hitters this year for a 400 batting average and a 600 slugging percentage. Blackhawk also throws the four-seam fastball way, way, way more often than he throws any other pitch. 40% of his pitches have been the four-seamer. And you know what? Opponents have crushed the Blackhawk four-seam fastball for a 457 batting average. Hey, guess what pitch Victor Scott hits the best this season? The four-seam fastball. He has problems against pitchers who spin it, doing a little better, but he goes hunting fastballs, and that's his strongest area. So that kind of coincides with Blackhawk's biggest weakness, right? So listen, that's why I think it's something I'm going to jump in on that one. And I'll not sound like Tony La Russa, but even if it doesn't pan out, I made the decision for the right reasons, right? The percentages are on our side on this one. So I'm talking too much about this, but I get caught up in it. I love it. I love finding stuff that, I think would be more, presents a great opportunity. Pick Six is available right here in Missouri, and there's nothing to hold you back. I really enjoy playing DraftKings Pick Six Fantasy, and I think you will too. Don't settle for smaller payouts at some of these other spots. Just switch to Pick Six, and you'll be at the right place at the right time for winning cash. Again, not these little teeny weeny payouts. You got to go to DraftKings Pick Six. Right now, new customers can get $25 in bonus picks with their first deposit of $5. So download DraftKings Pick Six app now. Use the code STL Sports. That's important. Use that code STL Sports for new customers to get $25 in bonus picks with their first deposit of $5. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick Six from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick Six not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick Six credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at picksix.draftkings.com/promos.
All right, I'm still on fire, man. Welcome back to my second and final segment of the Bernie Show. McGreevy's quality start at Coors Field only reaffirmed the obvious for me. Anyway, you don't have to agree. I don't think this really can be considered a true, quote, runway season because Mozeliak wouldn't promote McGreevy to St. Louis and make him a fixture in a Cardinals rotation that has been awful since late May. Instead, Mozeliak has defiantly and proudly stood by his guys, Mikolas and Eric Fedde, and he did it for two reasons. Number one, Mozeliak has given two bad contract extensions to Mikolas, and as I've mentioned here before, and dang it, he'll never acknowledge that was a mistake. He held on to, he made the trade for Fedde last summer, and he held on to Fedde last winter when it was the optimum time to draft him while his value was still high. And that decision obviously backfired, at least among sane people. And now Mozeliak is just desperate to pawn off Fedde for a meager return, any return, before the July 31 trade deadline. So Fedde's starting tonight at Coors Field. He's fresh. Maybe he'll surprise us tonight. I don't know. But that's not really the point. Fedde should have been removed from the rotation for McGreevy a while back. But nope, just like Mikolas and the bad contracts, Mozeliak is determined to prove that he was right to hold on to Eric Fedde. And the very premise of that is basically bat poop crazy, okay? That time has passed. So now what? You're going to get a couple table scraps for him? Well, probably, unless you can run into a front office that's dumber than this one, right? Manager Ali Marmol much prefers McGreevy in the rotation, but Mozeliak has blocked that by refusing to promote McGreevy at Fedde's expense. And I still see idiots out there. Well, how come Marmol doesn't start him then? Because the guy that runs the team won't bring him up. That's why, and he controls the roster. Mozeliak controls the roster. Mozeliak's vanity comes before winning. Just remember that. The Cardinals are paying Mikolas and Fedde a combined $25 million this season. So you know what? We made those investments, and we're going to go down all the way with them because we paid them. It just infuriates me when teams just can't admit a mistake. This includes Bill DeWitt too. You can't admit that you wasted money or a trade didn't work, and you're just going to stubbornly and defiantly say, "No, we paid these guys. We're playing these guys." Even if you had a chance to maybe go ahead of schedule and get to the playoffs in a year where, most people were thinking you're going to win, you're going to lose 88, 89, 90, 91 wins. And the other thing, of course, is that money is already spent because the contracts are guaranteed. So, they've already paid Fedde and Mikolas. So there's nothing to gain from, keeping them in the rotation, both of them anyway. The only thing I made my point. Let me move on. But instead of making this team better, Mozeliak and ownership are going to get every penny's worth of these bad investments in two bad starting pitchers. And in doing so, not only did Mozeliak cost his team wins this year and continues to cost his team wins this year because those guys are in the rotation, but he also blocked McGreevy, who absolutely deserves a chance to be in the rotation and stay here a while. Mozeliak traded for Fedde last summer. It hasn't worked out. Fedde and Mikolas are two of the worst starting pitchers in baseball this season. All the facts bear that out. And so this is what John Mozeliak has to show for his unwavering, undying loyalty and commitment to Fedde and Mikolas. Mikolas and Fedde have made a combined 38 starts this season, and their ERA together is 5.01. And when Fedde or Mikolas start a game this season, the Cardinals have won only 14 of their 38 starts. How's that winning percentage? I know it's a smaller sample when we talk about Michael McGreevy, but the Cardinals are 3-1 when McGreevy starts a game this season. And if we include his cameo appearances as a spot starter last year and put it together the last 2 years, the Cardinals are 6-1 in McGreevy starts, and he has a 3.59 ERA in those 7 starts. And his fielding independent ERA is an impressive 3.17. Does this mean that he's going to be the next Bob Force? No, that's not the point. The point is you have a garbage rotation, and you build this as a runway season, and your rotation is on flames, and this guy has deserved and he warrants an opportunity. That's the point. 3 of McGreevy's starts have been quality starts this year. He's had an above average game score, which I pay attention to, in 5 of 7 starts. That's a superb percentage. And if we throw in his 2 relief appearances over the last 2 years, the Cardinals are 8-1 when McGreevy takes the ball and is told to pitch in a game. And it's not like McGreevy has been set up for a soft schedule, for an easy landing. 2 of his 7 career starts have been made at Coors Field. He's made individual starts against the defending World Series champion Texas Rangers last year, the San Francisco Giants last year. This year he's faced the Dodgers, the Cubs, and the White Sox. His only career loss was against the Dodgers. He didn't pitch great against the Cubs, but he hung in there. Listen, I don't expect McGreevy to be Bob Gibson every time he walks to the mound. But the young dude has earned his place in this rotation. That's the point. He should be here. But the president of baseball operations keeps standing in his way. This is just remarkably crazy. Even when, especially when we, remember, keep in mind that McGreevy was a first-round draft choice by Mozeliak's front office in 2021. He's not just a guy. He's a guy that they put a lot of money in. They invested a first-round draft pick in. I think it was 2021. If I'm off a year, what the hell? No, you know what? These are the guys you should be trying to set up and make them a part of your big league team if they deserve it. And McGreevy deserves it. Back to this runway BS. I think any rational person would agree with this. Doesn't Michael McGreevy epitomize the whole runway season and what it's all supposed to be about? And I'm not saying, one other point I want to make here, I'm not saying McGreevy, when all the dust settles and it's 2027 or whatever, I'm not saying he's going to be number 1, number 2 starter. Never said that at all. But those of you who keep throwing that at me, you're missing the point. So let me just kind of put it to you this way. If Chaim Bloom and his staff, and that includes all the brilliant development people down in the minors, if they do their jobs, let's just use 2027 as an example, okay? If they're doing their jobs, that means Michael McGreevy would be like your number 5 starter. And if he's your number 5 starter, you got a good rotation, okay? That's the point. Not predicting the Hall of Fame for McGreevy. I'm just saying for a back-end starter, if you do your job and fill in the first 4 spots, you're going to have yourselves a fine rotation. But McGreevy was stuck in Memphis because Mozeliak ignored the fact that his starting pitching was getting obliterated, and there was at least one guy who could change it some. And who knows where the Cardinals would be in the standings had Mozeliak deflated his own ego to put McGreevy in the rotation in place of either Fedde or Mikolas. As I mentioned, this team is 14-24 when Mikolas or Fedde starts a game this season. How many games have the Cardinals lost in the standings because of Mozeliak's incomprehensibly bad judgment? And I think McGreevy symbolizes a persistent feeling, I'm speaking for myself, that's been growing stronger with me. I really don't, once you just really stop and like really look at it, I really don't think this was a true runway season at all. I think we in the media bought the marketing pitch, others a lot more than me. But yeah, I bought into the idea. But upon closer inspection, now that we're more than halfway through the season, I think that's when you stop and you say, well, wait a minute. Okay, let's look at this runway thing, right? This was this wasn't a runway season. I would call it a run it back season, an extension of 2024. We knew Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman were going to be here and more at bats for them and all that. Great. But that's hardly like a runway. That's hardly like this big, huge move because these guys are still young and they were first round draft picks. Walker had a good year in 2023. Gorman had an above average rookie season in 2022. He was really good, by his standards, and a lot of strikeouts, but I think he slugged 478 in 2023, and in the first 3 months of 2024 were really good until he fell apart. In other words, we've seen what they can do, and there was no reason whatsoever, especially after you've slashed payroll and you're taking a step back, to move on from them right now. So I'm not going to say, well, see Walker and Gorman are the examples, Bernie. That's the runway. Oh, is that right? Last season, Walker and Gorman had a combined 500 plate appearance. Excuse me. Let me do that again. Sometimes I go too fast when I'm worked up. Last season, Walker and Gorman had a combined 580 plate appearances with the big club. This season, got what, 2 months and 10 days to go. This season, their combined total is 434 plate appearances at 580 last year. So where's this giant runway? This season, Gorman in particular, this year has 175 fewer plate appearances than he had last season. And maybe he'll catch to that. He'll get closer to that. But right now, he's on pace to actually have fewer at-bats this year. Walker's played more, but let's not get carried away. So if we're talking about, because that's the thing Mozeliak touted, DeWitt touted, all the Kings men touted, runway, Walker, Gorman, runway, Walker, Gorman, runway, Walker, Gorman. Okay. Can we go to the facts here? Yes, thank you. I would prefer that. Gorman and Walker, as we sit here on this Tuesday, July 22nd, Gorman and Walker ranked 9th and 10th, respectively, for most plate appearances by a Cardinal in 2025. That's a big runway? Really? If you're collecting a paycheck from the Cardinals, maybe you would come to that conclusion. Anyway, no, maybe not quite that bad. I'm getting too salty. Sure, there were some expanded opportunities, mostly for Matthew Liberatore in the rotation and Victor Scott as the starting center fielder. And Libby hit the wall there, but he belongs in that rotation. And he belongs to be in the rotation next year unless there's some injury or, just the roof caves in or something. Victor Scott, terrific base stealer, terrific center fielder defensively. The hitting part's on the come, and I'm not sure what his peak will be or his ceiling is as a hitter, but I think this whole runway exercise, when it applies to those two guys, okay. And listen, if you're going to throw around the term runway, St. Louis media, runway. No, look, could you say that again? Let me record this. Runway. Let me write that. Runway. Okay. If you're going to do that every time you open your mouth, if you're one of the Cardinals people, runway. Well, I would hope that at least 2 players actually did get a runway, right? And I like their young relievers. I really do. But listen, it's a different category because MLB teams shuffle through an extraordinary number of relievers each season. So as much as I really like the fact that Riley O'Brien and Matt Swanson, and who am I leaving out? There's another guy I'm leaving out. I shouldn't do that. They have like 3 or 4 young relievers that have done a really good job this year. But again, a lot of it is because they got an opportunity, not because of the runway. It's because they go through so many damn relievers. You got to use anybody who's like standing up straight. But they have done a good job. Now, some of you may say, well, what about Herrera? What about him? Well, sure. But this organization already knew that Herrera was a gifted hitter. And he wasn't some dude who needed to prove that this season. Reaffirm it maybe, but prove it, no. If you remember how bad the Cardinals were offensively, Ivan Herrera was an automatic for this lineup. He was going to be in the runway. I got that on my mind now. He was going to be in the lineup one way or the other. Whether you call it a runway season, a run it back season, or any season, he was going to be in the lineup. You don't give a team credit for being, oh, wow, these guys are brilliant. Look, they've given Herrera an opportunity. They don't have enough good hitters, and he can hit. So you don't give him credit for doing something so obvious. In other words, when Herrera was healthy, he would play full-time this season. That was never in any doubt. He's a fixture. He's not a runway player. And you don't give credit to the front office for Herrera because he played extensively when healthy, because that's the no-brainer, especially for a team that's got an average offense, and it continues to get worse. Local media, here's another runway thing. Local media continue to tout Alec Burleson as a runway season beneficiary. See, Miklasz, the runway season is working. Look at Burley. Okay. That's interesting. That's really interesting because last season, Burleson ranked 5th on the team in plate appearances. So far this season, he's 7th. Runway. No, I think they ran it back with Burley because they liked what they saw last year. He played more last year than he's played to this point this year in terms of plate appearances. Well, the runway was a success, Bernie. I'm declaring it a runway. Just look at Big Burley. My gosh, it's so easy to con people, right? Now, as many of you have said, and kudos to you, and I mean that sincerely, tip of the cap to you from the very beginning who smelled this out, right? I remember my old YouTube channel reading the comments, and a number of you guys would just jump in there and say, well, listen, come on with this runway stuff. They just want to slash the payroll, all right? Tip of the cap. I wanted to wait and see if this runway season really was going to be as the Cardinals pitched it. But the fact is they have slashed the payroll by $40 million, and I'm not seeing all these great examples of how the runway season has opened up all these incredible opportunities for their players. And yeah. I know Nolan Arenado had no trade clause. Contreras, no trade clause. Sonny Gray, no trade clause. Mikolas, no trade clause. I get it. But that's the roster you're working with. And if you're going to talk about runway, 20,000 times in the offseason, well, I want to see the runway wide open. Haven't seen that. Haven't seen it at all, except for a couple instances. Which, yes, this makes the exclusion of Michael McGreevy from the St. Louis rotation even nuttier than it is, because McGreevy's salary this season is $300,000. The Cardinals clearly wanted to slash payroll, and they've lopped it off by like 37, 38, $40 million in 4 starts. So McGreevy's a guy that they claim that, well, we got to develop our own. We got to get back to developing our own starting pitchers, because they're cost controlled, and then you have your payroll efficiency. This guy represents all of the things you say you want. In 4 starts, here's one. It's a little fancy pants stat, but please listen to it. I put it on X earlier today. In 4 starts and 22 third innings this season, that's it. 4 starts, 22 and 2/3 innings. McGreevy has 0.4 wins above replacement based on the Fangraphs version of WAR. Mikolas and Fedde in 38 starts and 195 and 2/3 inning, they have the same WAR value as McGreevy. And the problem there ain't McGreevy. I mean, McGreevy, that's 4 starts and 22 and 22 and third innings, and he's already provided as much value as those two guys put together and in all the innings they've pitched and all of the starts that they've made. And then this kid in 4 starts has provided as much value as those guys. Oh, and the other difference is, when he starts, they win, unlike what we can count on for these guys, especially Fedde. And then here's the thing. Okay, yeah, Mo, we got to slash this payroll. We got to get it down. Okay. But they had to slash the payroll in part because Mikolas and Fedde are being, as I mentioned, they're being paid $25 million combined this year. So when you got that hanging overhead, it ain't going to, when you're slashing payroll by quite a bit, there ain't much room to bring in other talent. And they signed one free agent, Phil Maton, which was a good signing by Mo. But here's a guy who's making $300,000, and you can't find a spot for him in the rotation, or you won't find a spot for him in the rotation, even though he's out pitching, and it's not even a conversation. 2 guys that are making $25 million this year. He's making $300,000, and he's more valuable than they are, and he's a better pitcher than they are. And he represents what you say you want. We got to develop our own starting pitching. Meanwhile, you keep this guy down in Memphis. This is just another example of why the Cardinals have been such a poorly run. I'm sorry, I'm excited again. Why the Cardinals have been such a poorly run baseball operation and have lost a great deal of prominence and prestige as a franchise. Runway season. Nah, no thank you. I'm going to rename it, okay? Runway season. Nah, let's go this way, okay? Runway season, no. I'm going to go with go away season, as in go away Mo. I apologize for all the times in here where I was like so fired up I couldn't get the words out straight, but that's who I am. I'm authentic. Right? I'm proud to be authentic. That's all the hollering I have for you today. I appreciate your support for all my work here. And thanks to DraftKings presenting The Bernie Show here on STL Sports Central. Have a wonderful rest of your day.